6:37 at WIBX. I know it's very confusing, this whole twisted story involving Will Smith. What looked like was just a hit-and-run accident now seems a little more complicated and a little more sticky in that it might very well involve a lieutenant, a police lieutenant who's since retired, that was involved in the death of Cardell Hayes. Cardell Hayes is the man that police have arrested and charged with the shooting death of Will Smith. And it's very interesting that Cardell Hayes stayed. He stayed at the scene after the shooting.
Yeah,
he stayed and waited for police.
That is bizarre. That
well, his attorney is saying that he stayed because he feels he's in the right. I don't know in what scenario in a million years you could find that there's a justification for shooting somebody, period, let alone shooting them in a defenseless position in their car.
I was going to say, too, if you're going to make the argument that one party was the aggressor, the other party, the victim in this case, Will Smith, was the aggressor, he shot him when he was sitting in his car. It's not like he was on top of him or coming at him.
There is no, I think this is a crazy defense, but I guess you got to come up with something. And it turns out that this attorney will be stepping down today because he's accepted a judgeship. So another attorney is going to be appointed today for Cardell Hayes.
Really?
Yeah, he'll be stepping down today, too.
So this isn't just some, with all due respect, some crazy attorney who's out there throwing allegations. This guy's, he's going to be a judge.
Well, anybody can be a judge.
Anybody can be a judge, yeah. Well,
but I mean,
we've
seen a few crazy judges out there.
He had to be elected. He's obviously known in that
guess,
area.
Yeah, I don't know exactly how they do it there, but it could have been an appointment. I don't know. But yeah, I mean, this doesn't seem like he's a fly-by-night. But his defense, to me, is defenseless. I don't know how you can. Here he says, my client was not his name is John Fuller. My client was not the aggressor in terms of the behavior that happened after the accident. So there was the accident, and then he's saying that Will Smith must have, or someone in Will Smith's party was aggressive. But again, I'm not sure that any form of aggression could justify a shooting. Even if, I guess if, he's on top of him and he's trying to defend his life. But in this case, Will Smith was shot while he was in his car. I don't see where he's going here. Anyway, the defense attorney who represented Hayes at his first appearance yesterday in court, quote, my client is of the opinion that toxicology should be conducted of all the parties involved in the incident, and that it would shed some light on the behavior of some of the participants. He said the law applies to everyone, whether the victim is famous, infamous, popular, unpopular, black, white, Catholic, Baptist. The law applies equally to everyone. Whether the defendant is popular, unpopular, black, white, rich, poor, Catholic, or Baptist, the law applies to him as well. And if the law is applied fairly in this case, I think the results are going to surprise a lot of folks. I don't know where he's going with this because Will Smith was shot while he was sitting in his car.
So worst case scenario, the toxicology results show that there was something in the systems. Does that still justify being murdered?
I don't think it does. I don't know where in the world it does.
Say that?
I don't know. This is why I'm saying this attorney is making some crazy claims here.
Well, and the only thing I can think of is, and this isn't the case because it hasn't been reported as such, if Will Smith had or somebody in the party had a weapon and was threatening the life, that's the only way I could see any possible remote defense in that way.
But he's saying check the toxicology. So is he saying
everybody was
drunk?
He's saying they were either drunk or on some sort of a chemical. I forgot his exact wording that he used. When asked about this situation where the police lieutenant, now remember, so Will Smith and his and his wife, another NFL player, and others are having dinner with this police lieutenant who's retired. This police lieutenant does have a history with the Hayes family, and that is that he was the one that really was the reason police shot and killed Cardell Hayes' father. So the question, of course, being asked yesterday in the press conference with Fuller, the attorney, is there any chance that he knew, that Cardell Hayes knew that Will Smith was having dinner with this police officer, this former police officer? The attorney said, no, how could he? A crazy coincidence. It's New Orleans. We're always running into people you know. But Fuller said someone, either Smith in his Mercedes SUV or Smith's friends driving a Chevrolet Impala, that was the vehicle in front of them, literally ran into Hayes' Hummer on Saturday, rear-ending that vehicle to touch off the fatal chain of events. He's saying there may have been an earlier accident in which one of the parties sped off. My client followed in an attempt to get the license information and also made a 911 call to report such an incident, all of which will be coming out in upcoming weeks. Again, we are not vigilantes in this country, and you are not in a position where you're able to go off and do your own police work, right?
Well,
If he still does not justify the shooting death of, none of this justifies the shooting death of Will Smith.
Right, and even if you were in a fender bender, that is the punishment for that supposed to be to shoot the person who bumped into you?
Yeah, I would say this makes more sense though than the whole dinner thing. I mean, I know there's
The
a
connection,
tie there.
I mean, that's a very, very
It's a big coincidence.
big coincidence. I mean, there's a lot of things that have to get it to fall into place in order for him to. I mean, of all these things going on, out of all of this, this family had a huge lawsuit against the city. This is not just some moment. This guy, this police lieutenant, was involved in the shooting death of his father that they're calling an ambush. They sued New Orleans, the city of New Orleans, over it. There's been a whole big court proceeding, and they ended up settling out of court. The fact that, I mean, what a coincidence. The fact that the fender bender involved, some indirectly involved this police lieutenant, it really just seems crazy. But at the end of the day, what does this say about, I mean, was this really a road rage event? If that's what it was, what does it say about when, I was in a situation over the weekend. We were in Albany, and I love these people who are, I call them citizens police or traffic law protectors. And these are the people that when you do something wrong, they're right there, no matter how far away they are from the scene. They're right there to honk on their horn and, give you certain gestures to let you know you just broke the law. So, for instance, if you were to make a U-turn when you're in a city that you're not normally driving in, and you're not supposed to, I know I'm not supposed to make a U-turn, but you make the U-turn, and there's a car way in the
This is hypothetical, right?
No, it happened. I made the U-turn. I don't care. What are they going to do? There's a car way in the distance, and that car finds it upon their responsibility to get on my rear end and begin honking the horn and gesturing at me, which we won't get into, because I made an illegal U-turn. Well, listen, if I kept going, I was going to get back on the highway. I wasn't going to do that. So I made I made the decision. It was a safe U-turn.
It's so funny. You describe it as, listen, you're in an area you don't know.
You
know you're not supposed to make the U-turn, but you make the U-turn.
Correct. I mean, what else are you going to do? And so I made the U-turn. If it's a police officer that comes behind me, he's going to ticket me. Mm-hmm. But no, this is just some Joe Blow. I didn't create a dangerous situation. They were way away, way far away. I could have done 2 U-turns, and they still wouldn't have come close to me. But they're goody two-shoes who feel that they know you broke the law, and this is their opportunity to come up behind you and honk on their horn. Now, I began to do I wave at these people. I smile, I wave, I slow my car down a little bit. Now, that is a form of taunting, I'm afraid.
Do you wave with all fingers?
All
or
fingers.
Just one?
I don't flip them off. I don't get screaming. I just kind of smile as if to. I probably am making them angry, but it's in my own little way. Now, my wife, meanwhile, is yelling at me during this whole process. It starts out with, "I told you not to do the U-turn there." Okay, what do you want me to do? Go back on the highway? We'll be on the throughway. Turn around. I have to come all the way back. So I probably shouldn't have taunted the person because you don't know you don't know.
No,
Right.
you don't know.
You don't know, because then we ended up at a stoplight. The person's still honking their horn. I'm still waving and smiling in my rearview mirror, and who knows? The person could get out of the car and come out with a gun. There was a situation a case that just happened recently where a woman honked her horn in a quote unquote aggressive manner, honked her horn at someone. The person got out of the car and shot her. Now, she didn't die, but she could have. You really don't know what you're dealing with behind the wheel of the other vehicle. And if this did turn out to be a road rage event, it's terrible. But I don't think there's any defense at all, despite the fact that this attorney has to do what he has to do for his client. William in Utica, go ahead. You're on the radio.
Good morning, Bill.
Good morning.
It's a terrible tragedy. Our prayers go out to the family and
Yeah, it
friends
is
of
terrible.
Will Smith. But here's my comment. I know the attorney, they said something about toxicology.
Yeah.
So my angle is, or the angle I think they might be taking is, if Will Smith was intoxicated, it's always the person who's intoxicated's fault whenever there's a tragedy. It doesn't matter if you're, like, say, if, the guy's had a couple of beers and he's driving down the road, he gets T-boned, and it's not his fault. It's always his fault.
Yeah, but
it's always the guy's fault that's drinking.
Drinking, right? Even if he had one drink, the fact that there was alcohol in his system, but that's for a fender bender or an accident or something. This is you. I don't know how drinking could make you the victim of a gunshot.
Well, his aggressive actions because of his drinking might have led up to the guy's self-defense.
Well, that's interesting that you say that, because what we don't know, William, is the law in Louisiana and the law in New Orleans.
Right.
And, we saw this in Florida with the, what's that law that involved that?
Stand your ground.
Stand your ground law.
Sure. Exactly.
Who knows where,
Yeah.
who knows where this attorney's going to go with this thing? Good
Right.
point. Yeah.
And Bill, for some advice for in the future,
Yeah.
just ignore those people on the road.
You're right.
Because
I should.
anything that you do to get their attention can be considered aggressive driving, and you can be ticketed for that.
And beyond that, who knows what you're dealing? You could be dealing with a crazy person with a gun. I guess, Bill, you don't know, right?
Exactly.
Yeah,
But
all right.
it's a total tragedy, and
That's terrible.
I don't know if we'll ever really know the answer, but
Yeah.
But
All right,
I
William.
think that's where the attorney's going there with the toxicology.
Interesting, and again, we're basing it on our laws here. It would be very interesting to see what the law is there. All right, William, good point.
Okay.
Thanks. All right.
Yeah.
William, let's take a quick break. We'll come right back. We do have a free money question of the day. We'll be giving you a chance to win $100 in cash coming up, and a lot more to get into here this morning. We'll talk more about this. We have some people that knew Will Smith quite well, some people with some pretty amazing stories. Remember, this is a guy that would come back to Utica and hold clinics, and I'm not sure that you read this part of the story, but Will Smith was scheduled to be here, invited by the Observer-Dispatch for an event this Thursday. He would have been in town this Thursday here in Utica. 6:50 at WIBX.